Hello and welcome to our Wednesday webinar and accreditation update for all of our local programs. This is Lauren Bruce, your Community Resource Director in the West. Before we start, if anyone has any questions during this webinar, you can, as always, use the chat feature. You can shoot me an email, lbruce@sonc.net, or you can shoot me a text, 704-591-2841. So I know we have some folks on that are veteran coordinators and have probably been through the accreditation process a time or two, but I know we also have some new coordinators that maybe have not yet been through it. So I want to just give a quick overview of accreditation and why we do it. Accreditation is, of course, an annual process that's required for all of our local programs, aka sub-programs. You might see that language somewhere. And really, we just do this to ensure that we're able to carry out the mission of Special Olympics, but also so that we can support you in your role as local coordinator, and we can help you meet the goals that you have for your community and your program. Being accredited also gives you as a local coordinator the authorization to use the Special Olympics name, the trademarks, the logos, all of those pieces that we have and can offer you to carry out that mission. So there's a couple pieces that are required to receive accreditation and go through that process. And I'm going to go through them quickly. The first is attending our annual leadership conference, whether that's in person or virtually like it was this year, or sending an approved representative in your place, like a committee member, as well as any other meetings or trainings that come up that might be required. One example of that would be the new coordinator orientation, when we bring in all of our new coordinators really to do a deep dive into all things SONC. The second piece is to keep current forms on file. So ideally you have somebody on your committee that's able to help with this, and you're keeping things like your athlete participation packets, your volunteer screening forms, your coaches' education and their forms really on file and up to date with us. Just like you hopefully have someone helping with forms, hopefully you also have somebody on your committee that is a finance chair or is a little bit financially savvy and is helping you manage your pooled banking and your fundraising appropriately and according to our policies. That's a very important piece for all of our programs, regardless of your accreditation status. Number 4 is that you're representing SONC appropriately. That extends locally in your community all the way to if you're traveling internationally on behalf of us. It's important to remember that you're representing your local delegation, your county, and your community, but you're also representing Special Olympics North Carolina. So we want to be appropriate at all times. And you're also making sure you're adhering to our operating policies as well as policies and procedures that are set forth by our governing body, Special Olympics International. And of course, the final piece to accreditation is submitting your accreditation. And so our process, as you know it, has been typically in November or December. We send out that information via email, and you have a couple of things to fill out, some program information, maybe some event information, submitting your training rosters, as well as 2 finance pieces, your value in kind and your projected budget. Those are required every year for everyone. And then the program side of it is every 2 years, depending on your accreditation status. Once we've received all of those different pieces that we outlined in an email, accreditation is then turned over to our senior staff, and they're going to advise and collaborate with community resource directors to issue accreditation and one of 3 statuses: full, provisional, or non. So the 3 kinds: full is when you can use the name the Special Olympics, you can use our logo, you can use our trademarks, and you can really carry out the local training, the local competitions and events, and fundraising to the full authority of the local program, and by extension to the local coordinator. You probably have some staff support in that, but at the same time, you've got that full accreditation to carry out all of that local activity. Provisional status, right off the bat, we always say if you're a new coordinator and you're just learning the ropes during your first year with us, we always go ahead and say you're going to be provisional status. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that You have many of the rights and privileges that an accredited program has, but you're working with us to meet some of those benchmarks and goals that we set together. So some examples of that might be working to certify a certain number of coaches by a certain date or event, or maybe you're looking to recruit specific committee member roles or athlete leadership positions. Again, really just working a little bit closer with Isabella or myself and other Special Olympics North Carolina staff while you meet some benchmarks. Third is non-accreditation. If you're a non-accredited program, you probably already know, but it's another situation when you are definitely working very closely with SONC staff, and we're working hand in hand on all types of things like site visits. Maybe we're reworking your whole program. Maybe we're rebuilding your committee from the ground up. Maybe we're hitting some hard fundraising together, and we've set some major goals. Again, it's whatever those hot spots are, but knowing that we're working together to reach that provisional status. So now that I've gone over a little overview of accreditation, I know the hot topic is what are we going to do for 2020 to 2021? Because we know you haven't been able to offer your typical programming. We know that we're not going to be able to ask you for the things that we typically ask for during accreditation. Things like your training rosters and your spring games rosters from 2020, your event participation numbers. There's no summer games information, no fall tournament, none of those numbers that we typically ask for, and a budget that you might have submitted last year may not really be relevant. So given that, we've decided to give all of our local programs a buy on the 2020 accreditation process. This means you're not going to be receiving an email from myself or Isabella in November with the typical instructions and links to completing accreditation forms. The only thing we're going to need from everyone, every single program, is your value in kind, your VIK. And we know that's going to still look a little bit different. There may be some pieces that you secured, some donated goods that came in the beginning of 2020 when you were prepping for spring games, and there may be some value in kind donated goods during the second half of the year and coming in now as we prepare for a return to in-person training. We know it will look different, but again, that's the only thing that you're really going to be required to submit for 2020 to 2021. We will, however, be sharing a new timeline with you, and the next time you do go through the full accreditation process, it's going to look a little bit different. So this is going to start in the 2021 to 2022 program accreditation year. We have decided, first and foremost, to hopefully better line up with our program year, which is September 1st to August 31st. So our new timeline is going to line up with that. So that it's a smoother process for everybody, and it's really shifting to match up with our typical program year. And we do have this in our updated operating policy. So if you've never clicked through that, it's on our website here. You can always just search in the search bar for operating policy, and it does give you a good overview of the different statuses of accreditation, as well as our updated timeline and program year for accreditation. So if you haven't, I recommend just looking through our operating policies anyway. You can see there's a lot in here, and it's just good information for you all to know. So again, just search operating policies on our website and you can find it there. So our updated accreditation timeline, again, to match up with our program year, is going to look a little bit different. Instead of asking for everything up front in November or December, we're going to be splitting some of these pieces out so that hopefully it falls within when you're already asking for this stuff. So August or September, we're going to be sending out our first round, and it's really just us asking you to verify information. We're going to provide what we have for you for the previous program year. And so the only responsibility that the coordinator will have in August or September is reviewing and then providing updates on those items. So this might include your event calendar, what sports you offer, important community partnerships you have, such as parks and recreations or school departments, and then your committee member list. So the roles of everyone on your committee and what they do. Again, only asking for verification and some small changes here and there to those pieces. Then in November and December-ish is when we're going to be collecting your value in kind, VIK, and budget. This is going to stay in the November-December timeframe because Special Olympics North Carolina is still staying on that calendar year for our finances. So based on the information from the previous year, you're going to submit your value in kind for the current fiscal year. So everything that has been donated free of cost to your local program for the year you're currently in, and then your budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And we will have a brand new budget worksheet and descriptions and item codes for you. So you're really just plugging in your anticipated budget for the next year. Then in April or June, about the tail end of the spring training season here, when we're gearing up for summer games, but maybe you've already had your spring games, that's when we're going to be collecting the spring games and local event information, as well as some athlete information and other paperwork. So there's a bit of a list with this type of stuff, but again, hopefully if it's already happened or happening, it's much easier for us to collect from you. So this will include your training rosters of your athletes and unified partners, your coaches and your chaperones that are assisting with your local training, and then the appropriate paperwork for those people. If you're hosting a local event like your spring games, this is going to be included in there. So that will also include any information for our master calendar and your local webpage, a list of your GMT, a copy of your Class B volunteer sign-in sheet for everyone who did volunteer day of for your spring games or whatever your event was, a list of your athletes and unified partners and young athletes, as well as your coaches and chaperones. And all, again, of that paperwork. So really that stuff that you should already have on hand around this time of the year. And then what will happen in July is that accreditation will be issued for that upcoming program year, which again, will begin September 1st to August 31st, which isn't a change. That's always been our program year. So hopefully this shift will be easier. And again, less pieces for you to have to submit all at one time in November or December, and really just a much smoother process all around. Of course, if you have any questions on this, concerns about the time frame, don't worry, this will be sent out in writing. It's going to go on the updates page as always. So feel free in the meantime, until this information does go out, you can reach out to your community resource director. We're happy to help. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have as we start looking towards 2021 and all of those associated events. But until then, we look forward to seeing you on Zoom. We look forward to hearing about Partner Up, Power Up, and working towards the next accreditation process as it comes. So don't see any questions coming through, so we'll wrap it up here. But again, as always, feel free to reach out if there is anything that you need, and have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.